fear that this is one of those books that could definitely lead to some controversy. We are back for another Christian review of regular books, and today we are discussing Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. For those of you who've never seen one of these videos before, here's how it's going to go down. First, I do my regular review, what you know and love to expect from a book review, star rating, my own personal opinion, etc. And I do it all without spoiling the book. Then I get into my Christian review, and that's where I go over the basic pieces of a book that may or may not have a fellow believer or honestly anyone wanting to read it. I give all my caveats and any more information you may need about these reviews at the video that's pinned at the top of the playlist, or you should be able to click here somewhere. However, if you're still here, let's go ahead and get into my regular review. Lessons in Chemistry was given to me by my stepmom, and I put it on the back burner for so long, and then I just decided I really wanted to pick it up. I originally was going to do an immersive read of it, but I ended up doing it solely on audio, and even though it's a single female narrator, I think she did such an incredible job of reading the entire story in a way that had me engaged from beginning to end. Honestly, this was one of those great single narrator audiobooks that I would recommend to just about anyone. On top of that, this book is so good. I think the writing was fantastic. I loved the character growth, development, mindset, thought process. It was quirky and interesting. And in this book, there's also a dog named 630. And I loved that dog so much. Like, it was such a cool character throughout the course of this book. On top of that, this book felt very poignant because I had just read a nonfiction book previously, which was about the first women who were surgeons and doctors. And that took place in like the late 1800s and early 1900s, like 1920s, 1910, etc. And it was so interesting how these first doctors and surgeons were not taken seriously. They thought there was like this cute little hobby that women just wanted to do, and often were not given the opportunity to get these jobs. And if they did get the opportunity to get these jobs, they were often mistreated and not even able to get the education they needed in order to accomplish it. On top of that, when they did get the education they needed and they did end up in a job situation, it then did not actually pave the way for women in the future to get the same opportunities, because once the men who ran the schools and the hospitals and all those things found out that women were honestly wanting to do that, they discouraged it under the idea of, well, we didn't want this to be a normal thing. We thought this was like a one-off thing, which I found very, very interesting. Now, back to this book, how I feel like it was very poignant is because this book is about a woman scientist in the 1960s. And it really talks about how difficult it was for her to complete projects, to get funding, to be able to be the scientist she was able to be and educated enough to be, because they didn't take her seriously and they wanted her to always work underneath a man. What that built in this character was a hyper-independent, desiring to go out and accomplish these tasks. And although maybe it was less common in the 1950s and 60s for women to desire this type of independence, having read that nonfiction book, I know it's not an impossible thing, and I know that it's things that really did happen. So in that way, I loved this character. I loved learning about her desire for independence and seeing her want to succeed in what she was doing, and really trying to pave the way for women to be able to do it following her afterwards. On top of that, it's not just about the fact that she's a chemist, but the fact that she's a cook. Like, there was just so many aspects of this book that I absolutely loved, and I rated it 4.5 stars. If you want to see everything that I'm reading and rating in real time, you can do so by following me on Goodreads. You can also find me on Instagram, TikTok, and I do have my own YouTube channel. So if you want to see more of my day-to-day life and reading journey, you can check the links down below in the description box. Now let's go ahead and get into my Christian review. The first category I always love to touch on is smut or spice, and there is not a lot of it throughout this book. However, at the very, very beginning of the book, there is a sexual assault that occurs, and that is explicitly described. In fact, I think the book did a bit of a disservice to itself because there's a lot of explicit behavior generally in the beginning of the book that is different by the end of the book. And so it makes you think the book is going to go one way, and then it doesn't at all. In that way, I think that it's just something good to know. You can skip past it, and I definitely did, but it is very explicitly described, and it does play a role in the rest of the story. The second category is explicit language, and again, just like I mentioned for the sexual assault, it's in the beginning, and there's some, not a lot of words used, but there are a couple words that are pretty explicit that are used multiple times. And so it's interesting how Bonnie Garmus really wrote this book to be like really intense in the front, and then you get more of the character and the storyline at the end without all of the intensity. The third category that I just love to touch on, because I do know that there are believers who would struggle with seeing this, is that the character is atheist. And that definitely plays a role into how she does what she does and her desire for independence and her ideologies and everything else that follows in with that. And I enjoy learning about characters that are different than me. I think it's an important aspect, but if that for you feels like an uncomfortable thing to read about, it's something good to know. She does also explore a lot of other topics about her independence, about women not needing men in order to succeed, and a lot of like feminism type things. So again, just something good to keep in mind. This book is probably appropriate for anyone aged 17 and up, mainly because of how it starts is the reason why I'm saying that. There is just a lot of intenseness at the beginning, and I think it'd be best for a little bit more maturity before going into this book. Before you go, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can stay up to date on all of these Christian reviews of regular books, plus me and my mom's podcast, The Journey We Share. On top of staying up to date, it also helps us know that the content we're providing is content you want to keep seeing. And since we're a nonprofit, it's like a free way for you to donate without having to open up your wallet. So before you go, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and maybe even comment down below. And I cannot wait until we see you on the next one.